Hello, everybody, and welcome to Put That On My List, the show where the guest comes up with the movie and the questions, and I and my new co-host answer them. I'm Trey Jones.
I'm Dominic Salima.
And we're going to get right started here with Dom's movie that he brought in today to talk about, because we're getting him all tested out and being the new co-host. R.I.P. Spencer. He had a great run, but it is a fresh new semester, and it is a fresh new show. So we are going to talk about
Godzilla Minus One.
Yeah.
Which I don't really understand what they're subtracting from. Like, where do you get that title?
I don't know. A lot of Japanese projects also call things Zero. So they got like these interesting naming schemes. Maybe they already made a Godzilla Zero, and they were like, well, we can't be redundant, so we'll just do a number behind that.
Maybe it's like an extra prequel. So Zero is the prequel.
I'm not going to pretend that I know the Godzilla continuity for the franchise, but maybe that's something like that. But regardless, it is a Godzilla film. So this is a franchise. And it is a franchise that has jumped around in different continuities for decades and decades. But I'm going to ask first to you before you ask me stuff. So why were you wanting to bring this to me today to talk about?
Well, definitely a movie that, well, one, it's new. So I wanted to get it. I wanted to finish it. I had watched it a while ago and only got an hour into it, then just walked away, never finished it. So that was part of the reasons. And I remember it being a lot more like acclaimed than what everyone was expecting. Like, I was expecting, another Godzilla movie. Are we okay? Didn't really think too much of it. Then I hear that it was just this crazy, great story, really human story, and everyone was really blown away by it. And I had originally,
literally
blown away by it. And I had thought it was just like another Hollywood movie, like with the monster universe, but it's not even American.
No, it's not. So this is a original Japanese international film. So there are the American Godzilla films and there are the Japanese ones. And the Japanese ones tend to be more acclaimed. The American ones are the let's cut away from the human characters and get back to all the things exploding. Not to say that that's not a big part of this film, but Godzilla was like barely on screen.
Maybe for 10 minutes, which is crazy to me.
And it's great for the budget.
Huge for the budget.
Yeah, I think I remember reading this was between 15 and 20 million to make.
Yeah, I even read 10 to 15. So
10 to 15.
So between in that range, which is pretty impressive.
And for the amount of practical effects as well, the boats, the incredible number of extras they had.
Yeah.
This really did feel like a kind of a community effort, which is literally what the film is about, so that helps. But all right, I'm going to turn this over to you now. What is your first question to me regarding this film?
So, were you surprised to see that little Godzilla? I know we were just talking about it, but were you expecting more? And how did that resonate with you?
I think what surprised me more than how much Godzilla was in it was when Godzilla popped up. I remember being very caught off guard that he was in literally the second scene. Like, we start at this island, the main character, Koichi, lands his plane. Then they're kind of like, well, you said, you had this malfunction, And he's like, oh, no, what are you claiming that, I didn't go and blow myself up? Well, of course I would have done that if I had the choice. And of course he's lying, but we get that little setup for the first scene. And then he sees these fish floating. And the next scene, Godzilla's there attacking them. And I just was very surprised. It was and in the manner that it happened, it just was so sudden.
Mm-hmm.
And then like nothing for a long time. And then I remember just being very caught off guard when he attacks the city there at kind of the midpoint of the film. It felt like it was going to go into this extended third act, like entire second half of the film is just him in the city blowing everything up until like there's nothing left. And that was the direction the story was going to go. But no, because Godzilla leaves And then it's basically the rest of the film is kind of like Jaws, where everybody kind of comes together. It's a local effort to like come up with a plan for how they're going to kill him. And then we kind of get that last battle at the end. But Godzilla is really not the focus here. And that also, not just in like how little he's on screen, but also when they decide to use him, sort of more as like an outside escalation of the internal plot stuff that's happening with the main character. Where, you know, he doesn't have some personal grudge against Godzilla. He's got more of a personal grudge against himself. And he's sort of seeing this second embodiment of the war coming back, and this is his chance to do what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, like what was his name?
Koichi, the main character?
Yeah. Because they call him by his last name a lot too in the film. It screws me up. Anyway, it's survivor's guilt. That's what he's dealing with throughout the whole thing is survivor's guilt. And you see that multiple times. One in the beginning because in World War II Japan was a kamikaze pilot, like you said. He bailed out on his mission essentially, and then went about his life. Went back to his city after the nuclear attacks. So and he had that interaction with the woman that was his neighbor, I believe.
Yeah, and I think it was Tokyo. So it was after the firebombing specifically, which like totally wiped it out. Like,
was that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, because there was the nuclear attacks, but then there was also the firebombing of Tokyo, which like there was like almost nothing. It was like flattened, and you could really see that too at the beginning.
Yeah. And then like throughout the film, it just happens more. Even after the first attack on the island, this guilt builds up in him, and I thought they did a really good job of how they portrayed his internal struggle throughout his life, because he knew at his heart that he had this love for the girl that he took in and the baby, but he wouldn't allow himself to really fall for it, which I thought was really an interesting way to portray it.
I thought it was very interesting how this all incorporated into sort of socio-political aspect of the film's commentary, where there's this sort of, you'll notice this in other Japanese productions as well, there's this extreme idolization of self-sacrifice, which, I mean, we have that here in the US, but like to the point where it's sort of seen that like to throw it all away for like a chance at victory, to like, you know, have that heroic, even if it's not necessarily for victory, even if it's not necessarily practical to go out and, you know, blow yourself up, this idea that it is the honorable thing to do over continuing to live. And that's the old sort of propagandized imperial message that has been, you know, put into his head as a kamikaze pilot. But then you have the doctor throughout the film who's talking there at the end about like, I want to make sure this operation is one in which nobody has to give their lives. And definitely still some people died at the end, but like sort of this sentiment of like, we're not going to throw our lives away just because we think we're supposed to. You know, we're going to try to save as many people as possible. And you kind of get this back and forth between the scientists, more like progressive way of viewing things, where he's like, I want to be past the war. I want to, you know, live in a time of peace. And then you've got sort of the older way of thinking, which is like the guilty side of Koichi's sort of complex throughout the film. So
where he's not really doing his duty to his country and all that, and I think the doctor put it best when he said that for far too long the government has treated their lives far too cheaply, with not installing ejector seats into a lot of the planes,
which was kamikaze a good setup for a payoff later.
Right, yeah. And honestly, to that payoff, I wasn't even sure if he was going to use the ejection seat or not, to be honest. I think that was one of my biggest questions I had watching towards the end. Is like, is he going to commit fully, or is he going to, you know, save himself and live? But
yeah. And I mean, I think in that regard, I thought that the sort of opening segments of the film were done well, but like it kind of jumped around a bit through time where it was a little harder at first to sort of get the direction. But I think everything from the big attack with Godzilla coming to the city and then all the second half of the film did a really good job being like we're setting up the big question that our main character has to answer. It's like, is he going to go with the old way? Is he going to throw his life away meaninglessly because he thinks he has to? Or is he going to do what is in reality the more honorable thing to do, which is to live for his new family that he's found? Something he thought he didn't deserve to do, but then he kind of has to realize, like, you know, like, I've got this kid now, and he doesn't know that his boo, who he's going to eventually marry, is still alive. He doesn't know that at the time. But
yeah, that part confused me. So she was good, or
she must have just been like really seriously injured and like picked up out of the rubble or something like that.
Yeah, because I thought they had a whole funeral for her at one point.
I don't know if it was a funeral. I think it was more like he set up like the altar like incense burning thing to like mourn her, but like especially for like the technology they'd have had at the time, they wouldn't have necessarily been able to like confirm that really quickly that that's exactly who she is when they like find her in the rubble or something.
Yeah, that's true.
But it is interesting because I think it wasn't exactly a massive stretch of time between that attack and then the end of the film. I'd say probably like a little over a week.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah. So I still thought it was like, I could tell that was what they were setting up when the guy showed up with the telegram. Like, okay, she might still be alive. So like in that way, it kind of like dampened it so it didn't feel like. Have you ever seen War of the Worlds? Not the new one long that really sucks. The older one.
No, I saw the new one a while ago.
The Spielberg one or the Zoom call one?
Oh,
with Ice Cube.
Probably the Spielberg one.
Okay, so the Spielberg one where his son supposedly dies like halfway through the movie and then just shows up at the end and he's still alive.
This is the one where they're trying to transform Earth into their planet or something, or
they're like trying to like take humans to figure out how to like beat the common cold because they're not immune to it.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah, I think this is something I watched when I was a kid a while ago. But.
Yeah, but anyways, in that film, there was this sort of like famously poorly received ending where this son who everybody thought had been killed just shows up at the end. Like, oh, Dad, I'm still alive. And how did I get here? I don't know. I just did. So it felt almost like it. I can't say I'm 100% a fan of the way it was utilized, but it certainly was better than that. I think they set it up all right that like you didn't see the body. You didn't, you
see the body, it's not dead.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You don't see, you see the guy coming up with the telegram, so that foreshadows it's going to happen. So that when the reveal happens at the end of the film, it's not like, that's totally pulled out of their butts.
We don't really know what the telegram says, or do we know what he says?
We don't know what it says at first. We just know that the lady's like, right. She's like surprised.
And then he leaves a message to her after the fact, later on. Yeah.
So the telegram comes already when he's on his way to go fight Godzilla. So he doesn't get to see it until after that ends. But what I do love about that ending is they cut and then the movie's over.
Yeah.
Like it's not an American Hollywood production where the ending goes on for like
another 20 minutes.
Another 20, exactly.
And there's like a resolution, like, oh, everyone's coming back together for a last big dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought they did a good job with that, except, the last shot where you see the heartbeat.
Yes, Godzilla's still alive. But yeah, of course Godzilla's still alive. So, Godzilla never dies.
Plus Godzilla plus one.
Plus one?
Next.
Is that what they're calling it?
I think that's the sequel.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I wonder if
is it Godzilla plus one or Godzilla minus two? Or is it Godzilla squared?
Oh, if it's Godzilla squared, then they're screwed.
Yeah. All right. Getting back to the question format of the show. What else you got?
So one thing I noticed, and I was wondering if you did, is did you notice their use of colors and more so in like the saturation? And I guess the follow up to that would be where did you notice it the most, and where did it resonate with you the most?
So the colors, I just thought like over the course of the film were just generally well done. Like I thought it was well color graded, and I thought it kind of followed like color theory pretty well. Like the ocean scenes, they didn't, especially with the amount of characters who would wear these plain whole colors to go with their uniforms, contrasted with like the boat and then like the water. You'd have like this green and blue contrast that gave it this very earthy, grounded sort of look to it. It wasn't like full of grain to try to make it look like it was made at the time, the film is set, but it also definitely kept this very grounded look to it, and it definitely had these very rich, deep colors, which I really liked. But I remember there were a few particular scenes, particularly when he meets up again with the mechanic who he had met at the beginning of the film, and then he contacts him there.
Tochibana.
Yes, he's like, it's very dark, and like you have like these very contrasting visuals of like pure darkness in the background, and like it definitely feels very isolating.
Yeah.
And like with the fact that he's talking about like, oh, Koichi's like, oh, we're gonna make it a kamikaze plane. Don't worry, you said I should have gone and done my mission. Well, you're gonna help me, and I'm gonna go do it. But then I liked the fact that the mechanic at the end was the one, like you're sitting there thinking this mechanic is going to just tell this guy to go die. But then at the end, it's him who installs the ejection seat so that he gets the chance to save himself at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I thought was really well done character work between their relationship and just the two of them. Because you could, from the beginning, you always knew the mechanic had sympathy for Koichi, because I think they had a special moment, or not special, but they had a moment of understanding between one another in the beginning of the movie, at the island.
Yeah, and it kind of got clouded by Godzilla showing up and him not shooting Godzilla, even though we know it wouldn't have done anything.
Right.
But it's allowed there that, like, in their ignorance about what exactly Godzilla is, them not really knowing what could really be done, it puts the seed in Koichi's mind that he's guilty of being the cause of their deaths, and if he did his duty, they'd be alive. Probably not the case. He probably would have just been killed along with them.
Another human emotion covered in the story, which is overlooked by these Hollywood movies.
Yeah. But it's like, it's not meant to be something that makes logical sense either. It's like, oh yeah, if you were probably right to not try to shoot that thing that would immediately turn around and like, crush you, because like there's nothing you could have done. But because of the like all these like cultural and like propagandized things they've been fed about, like you need to go and die in order to be seen as honorable, or to be a soldier who did your duty. And then you've got the people back at home that when he shows up and they're like, why aren't you dead? You're a kamikaze pilot. You're supposed to die. That's your job. Right. So it must mean that all this is because of you, because you didn't do your job.
Right.
And you get also the sense that the woman who says that to him at the beginning of the film is like, she eventually stops saying that. And like, because as the film is going on, they're sort of repairing, their homes, getting back what they had lost, and they're starting to forget those old ways. But then it's actually Koichi himself who is continuing to internalize those thoughts, and he's like, no, I'm not done yet. My war's not over yet. Everybody else is fine to say the war is over, but for me it isn't.
Right.
And I really liked that aspect of the thematic conflict.
Yeah, no, great writing overall between the characters and everything. But back to the colors, I think when I first noticed it is right before the climax. At some point, this is basically right when everything's kind of going well for him. He just gets the job. They've got the new house, and everything's all bright and happy. The colors are well. I think I remember the shot being the whole family sitting down. I don't know. I can't remember what it was for lunch or dinner or whatever. And I just thought that was a really cool. And then they did contrast like that throughout the film. But I thought it was a really well done piece. Is how they is how they edited the colors to match the emotions going on in the film going on, which made me connect with it overall.
Yeah,
a lot more.
Yeah, I definitely like the presentation overall. Especially like you just get that kind of total vibe switch when the new house comes in, because you're so used to the squalor of like the sort of like shack they made that when it switches to like an actual house and they're wearing not destroyed, tattered clothes,
it like, feels clean. I felt better.
Yeah,
watching it,
and then everything warms up, brightens up a bit,
right?
And it kind of gives you that sort of false sense of security, and then also like you get that like a guitar bit of the soundtrack that comes in there.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, this is an interesting music choice, but it's definitely very wholesome.
Right. Yeah.
But then they immediately cut from that to, oh, Godzilla still exists and he's coming for Tokyo.
Right. It's not over yet.
Yeah. But yeah, like I thought what I thought was interesting is in regards to this being a Godzilla film, there's always that sort of bog standard anti-nuke sort of mindset behind the original Godzilla story, where it's all about sort of the nuclear arms race. Soviet Russia is mentioned a few times. That's why U.S. doesn't get involved in this film.
Right.
But like the commentary around Godzilla that you find in most of these films kind of isn't the focus of this one, which I thought was very interesting. Because, like, this isn't one of those super sympathetic Godzillas who's, like, in pain or something. Or, you know, he's just an animal who's scared and the humans are the problem. Like, this is a very human story. And honestly, this is probably the biggest jerk I've seen Godzilla be. Like, he's mean in this movie.
Yeah. And then was it the Hollywood version that came out the same year or the year after, where Godzilla was like pink, or Godzilla versus Kong or something like that?
Something like that. That might have been like another form Godzilla took, but like those movies definitely go for like the more like almost Avengers feel.
Yeah, where they're not villainizing these monster characters; they're making them into the heroes at some capacity.
And like not even like there's necessarily a problem with making Godzilla more of like a heroic or sympathetic character, but almost like the cities that get destroyed every movie aren't cities full of people who had lives. Like it's just a playground for these big monsters to duke it out, and then the camera guy to get some cool shots.
Yeah.
And like I remember, I think it was King of Monsters, like from like 2017 or something. I remember I saw that one when it came out, and like Boston gets destroyed. And I remember feeling really bad about Boston getting destroyed because I like Boston. I went there as a kid for Red Sox games, and I was like, they destroyed Fenway Park. Why am I supposed to be happy about this moment? It's gone.
Right. It's just terrible. It's honestly, it's just reminiscent of Man of Steel, for example. You know, Superman and the Kryptonians going at it in Metropolis, and where the controversy lies is what about all these people that are getting affected by these super power creatures duking it out in the playground, like you said.
Or the court scene where the courtroom gets like bombed, and instead of going to help the people, he just sits there and aura farms. He's like
standing there the whole time. He's just like, oh,
yeah,
these people can't be like me.
But it's interesting because there's this turnaround with like how sort of cynical recent discourse has been with it, whether it's in politics, whether it's in just filmmaking as well, where we kind of think that everybody needs to be this big jerk and humans suck.
Right.
What's even the point of going on any longer? And it's like, then you get this film, and you also got the new Superman, where it's like all about like helping people, and Superman's a big Boy Scout who says "What the hey, dude" to his dog, you know.
Right.
And it's like people are eating that up because people don't really care about things being edgy anymore. They kind of want these more redeeming stories. Where I'm not saying necessarily that every story has to be that way, but for like a big budget action film, especially a franchise piece like this, I can see where the mass appeal is for something like that.
100%.
It certainly made me feel better because like it did feel like a community was really coming together to like make a difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And you can say that's pretty much how the overall production went. I mean, we talked about their budget, but I don't know what methods they did, whether that was crowdfunding or they had some sort of, production investors involved in the movie. But with the amount of extras that they had, and I read something really quick and it said like it described it as like a 90s style of special effects where you're combining CG and practical effects to get what you want. And they even used, I think they scaled it down a lot of the practical effects, like how they would in the old Godzilla movie, where they make everything like a much smaller, man-made scene and then film it from there. Which I read really quickly, so I'm not 100% sure on that, but
yeah, I could definitely see some like more old-fashioned effects, which I think really that like with like the dramatic soundtrack too, but made the film feel very classic.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like look at Godzilla for like just his character design by itself is pretty much 1-in-1 with the old one, or close to it at least.
Yeah.
Obviously with a modern twist on it. But as I was watching it, just to refresh myself, my roommate walked in and he was like, "What is this, Godzilla?" I'm like, "Yeah, man." He goes, "Is this like a bad movie?" Because he was looking at the CG, specifically Godzilla. He was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's not like, a Marvel budget production where you're getting this crazy CG. Well, maybe not for all the Marvel movies.
Marvel
but
circa 2015.
Right, or Avatar. Let's go with Avatar.
Okay.
Because that's good CG. But, and he thought it was just a bad movie. I'm like, no, this is probably one of the better movies I've seen recently, where it's a crazy story. And yeah, the CG isn't the best in the world, but it's really amazing how they got it done. And it looks good enough. I don't think it impacts the movie in any way.
I think a lot of the stories that have the kind of special effects I appreciate, they don't look real necessarily.
Yeah.
It's not about the photo real, but it's about the human element in the way they create it. Where if you have like all this photo real CGI all the time, but you have the understanding that there's no actors on any sets, it feels less like people were involved in the making of it. Whereas like somewhat poorly composited crowd shots of people running as the stomping happens, which cuts to like ragdoll physics as they get like kicked or crushed or something. It's like, well, I know they were really thinking about how they were implementing the practical elements with the CG elements, which to me makes it feel more human.
Right.
Like you can see the people and they're real people and they're running. So when they get crushed, you feel that kind of like, oh crap, like that was a bunch of people who just died. Like it gives you that more visceral reaction to like the death that's taking place, especially for a story which is trying to be very optimistic about the value of human life. So when you see people getting killed by Godzilla just like sneezing, that's like, it makes it feel more impactful when it's happening.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even there was like this one sequence with while Godzilla's attacking the city where the girl works. There's one sequence where we're basically with the group of reporters. The reporter and the crew on top of the building covering it. And we stay with them for a few seconds, like a couple shots, which I thought was really interesting. It's like another another example throughout the film of just human interaction, more over the monster destroying things and looking cool. It's just, these people are risking their lives for journalism reporting this, but yeah, so it just goes into those human emotions, which I think we lack a lot.
Yeah.
And it's an original screenplay. That's all original, which is another thing that we're lacking a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's not like I think the story takes its simpler plot and allows it to branch out in areas that you don't necessarily expect in the smaller details. Also, like I said, for instance, the first half of the film is more or less just a character piece on the lead with Koichi. So you're not really getting the action there. You're just getting like this guy's life. And then you get a cutaway every 5 to 10 minutes or so to be like, Godzilla still exists, still coming. He'll be here eventually. But it also does work really well as like a historical sort of documentation of sort of that restoration period.
Right.
Which I like. I like when, productions that decide to make themselves be at a point in history actually decide to talk about that history.
Right.
Unlike some series that I watch where they don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think actually I liked what you were talking about. But we had talked about the budget, but like let's just talk for a second about that. Like, how is it? What is really happening that makes it that a film with this sort of scale, with the amount of actors it has, can cost 10 to 15 million instead of 150?
What about the film?
What do you think before I go into my thoughts?
How do I think they got the budget down there? Honestly, I think a lot of it is probably passion over anything for the project. Because I feel like just with the level of quality of movie and story they put out, you could tell that they had a lot of heart in it, like the director and whoever was involved creatively. And so yeah, I think passion definitely had a big thing. But in terms of actually keeping the budget down for fiscal reasons, I can only assume it's cutting corners in ways that high production budgets wouldn't necessarily, in terms of like practical effects and
yeah.
I'm not really too sure.
And I'm gonna, because I know we're probably getting a little over our time here, but
yeah,
I'm gonna sort of talk a bit about this to come roundabout to what I thought was like the big theme about community and the value and like realizing the value of the lives around you. Is that this is a Japanese production, I think, with the Toei company,
yes,
who you would know for many a different animated film, but because it isn't Hollywood, because you're not dealing with superstar actors, you're probably dealing with less spent on like multi-million-dollar salaries for single people. Probably, still getting paid well, but like not ridiculous.
right.
And you're also dealing with, less like restrictions in terms of like, casting for extras. Like
right.
they're able to get those crowds easier, as well as like, companies that are more used to being economical about, the special effects shots, just the fact that there's not that many in the film because Godzilla doesn't show up that many times.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's a good reason.
That's a good reason.
Yeah.
But I think even getting away from how much special effects there are, I had heard something like the Demon Slayer Infinity Castle movie costed somewhere around $20 million to make. Did you see that movie?
I did see that. Actually, I did see that recently. I saw it last week.
I saw it too. Yeah, like 2 weeks ago, like when it came out.
20 million. Wow.
And I was like, how? It's like that. It's.
Do you think it should have been more?
No. I'm saying it's almost 3 hours long.
Yeah, it's
breathtaking
so
animation the entire time. Incredible amounts of CGI and special and complicated VFX shots. Full soundtrack, large voice cast. And you have to ask, how are they able to keep it low like that? And I think there's a big problem in Hollywood filmmaking about, the people at the very top really just want to spread the money around each other. And you have this like gutting of like the lowdown. You don't have a lot of extras in films.
Right.
Speaking parts for background characters. So everything just sort of starts to zoom in on just, your big, beautiful supermodel leads. And then all the real human beings that are around them don't get the spotlight. I mean, you can watch some 80s films where like just the most random Billy Bob, whoever, is just in the background there, and then the camera cuts to him and he gets a speaking part for a bit for like a funny joke. That doesn't really happen anymore. Right. And I think that's something that makes films feel alive, And that's something that like the current system in Hollywood is not really promoting, but international systems that are, you know, less centralized and also just less rich, you know, they do have that aspect. And I think people are realizing that, and that's why they're going out to see these films.
Yeah.
That's why a film like Godzilla Minus One, which most Americans would write off as a dumb monster movie, turns out they go and see it. It becomes a huge success, makes however many times its budget back in the international and local box office.
Let's fact check
And,
that real quick.
you know, snags an Oscar for best visual effects. Not just because the visual effects were good, but because they did so much with so little. And I think that this is just a good thing to talk about sort of toward the end here, because community, life, people, isn't it so poetic? It's like poetry, it rhymes.
Right.
Yeah. What does it say?
So it earned $56.5 million internationally. So almost quadrupled its budget.
Yeah.
Just about. Which is awesome. Like,
and
how
that's
often do
just
you
like,
ever see
that's
that?
not even the domestic. Is that just the international box office?
Yeah, that's international. Yeah, internationally.
Yeah.
We'll look up for domestic, but
it made a lot of money regardless.
Right.
But I mean, you know, that maybe Hollywood could learn a lesson or two from that about low to mid budget films, you know, with a little less restraints, a little less investment in like too many producers, or, you know, $15 million salaries for the actor to go on set for 6 weeks or something.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really understand that.
No crazy Panasonic, IMAX, whatever cameras.
Yeah, I mean, the cameras, geez, that's probably the cheapest part of it all.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Like, you know, I think there is something to be said about cutting down those budgets, and then you can have a movie that can make something like $59 million, which to a film like Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny, with a budget of $300 million might seem like chump change, but to a film like Godzilla Minus One made for $15 million,
you're making a good return.
You're making a good return. Yeah. So is there any other closing thoughts you had?
Yeah, just one last point about, you know, budget and how they got it down. I totally forgot. Like, I took a class on Italian cinema last semester, and the big focus on that was neorealism, specifically in Italian films, but you can see it all over the place. And neorealism is just a method of filmmaking where you use, or it's a lot more practical strategies. So, for example, hiring non-professional actors. You know, you're just getting people off the streets. A good example of that would be The Sopranos. When they're hiring for casts, they literally sent out a message saying like, "Hey, if you're Italian, live in the New Jersey area, come swing by and do the audition." I don't know if you ever saw the documentary on The Sopranos show, but I recommend it. So many people came that the police had to come in and shut down the whole event for the auditioning. So I assume they did a lot, especially for the
extras.
The extras. Thank you. Where they probably hired just a bunch of people just to be extras or whatever, and paid them whatever stipend, X amount of money. Probably not even that crazy for the small parts, but people like to be in movies. You know, hey, I don't have to have a degree in acting or whatever to be in a movie. Come swing by. But yeah, so there's definitely a lot of neorealism aspects to the film that I think overall brought the budget down so low and made this miraculous film. Yeah.
And I mean, sort of closing it out here, for all my thoughts, I mean, I could go, you know, some scenes might get a little dramatic at times. Koichi could be a little emo at times. But, like, I think for all of the things that I might say, like, you know, a change here or change there, I mean, at the end of the day, this was a film made by people who wanted to make it, clearly, who had a strong vision for it, and they knew how to get that vision despite the limitations that they had. And arguably, it was those limitations that caused Godzilla to not be the major focus, to not make this a movie about blowing up buildings, but instead the people who are trying to save their home, who are trying to make peace with, you know, the history they had been dealt with. And I think for that reason, it's a great film.
Yeah.
And it has been put on my list, and I can now check it off my list. And you can put it on your list if you didn't watch it. But I mean, sorry about all the spoilers there if you haven't seen it. But would you like to say your personal goodbyes, Dom?
Goodbye. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. Thank you, Dom, for coming on and being my new co-host. Well, we will see you guys next time for another episode of Put That on My List. Thank you for watching.